Mayor Pro Tem Yates,
Here.
and Mayor Birdsong.
Here. Okay, we'll have invocation, pledge of allegiance. Then we'll have all of these proclamations. So do we want all of these to be done Monday night, including the achievement for excellence in financial reporting?
Yes, sir. I think we can do all those Monday evening.
All right, that'll
Further
work.
information for this evening.
Okay, so we have ordinances, second reading,
No changes.
no changes. Consent agenda.
So, Mayor and Commissioners, if it would please you, I'll go through each one, 10A through E. 10A, this is a grant that we had applied for this past summer. This is through the Office of Greenways and Trails. It's called the Trail Go Grant. We were awarded a grant for $200,000, which requires a local match with that. In our case, that match is $52,000. So this is a project totaling $252,000. It will focus on the Chain of Lakes Trail, particularly the corridor extending from basically Motor Pool Road north to I believe to the Lake Rochelle Bridge. Yes, that's what's highlighted in blue on your map there on the left-hand side. We will use the funds to do clearing along that corridor to open it up, remove some of the underbrush and make it more visible, thus more attractive and safer. We will also be acquiring a piece of equipment, a tracked remote mower. I think we have a photo of that as well, which basically operates kind of like a bush hog. This is a remote control piece of equipment we'll be able to use here and other areas along the trail to help us maintain that area. We're also working closely with the police department and our Safe Neighborhoods department to address some homeless encampments that are in that area.
How far away do you have to be to operate that?
I'll look to my Parks and Recreation staff if you could come to the podium.
The one that we purchased for activity fields, probably 100 yards or within 100 yards. It has a pretty good reception there.
Okay.
So we handle all of our slopes and embankments with it.
So this is just authorizing, we have to do a budget amendment because this was not a budgeted item based upon when we applied for the grant. So we'll do a budget amendment to add the $200,000 in grant revenue to the general fund and then proceed with the contractual services and the acquisition of the equipment.
Okay.
Item 10B, this is an expansion of our smart cover program that we implemented back beginning in 2021. As you know, we have some sensors that we've installed on some of our manhole covers that allow us to monitor and catch potential overflows ahead of time. Also provides a tremendous amount of data on what's happening within our manhole system. You can see some photos here of how this works. If you happen to see one of our manholes that has a green reflector on top of it, that is going to indicate, is it white? It's shown as green here, Gary. I'm going to say, is it white or green? Do you recall? If you see a manhole with a reflector on top, right,
Green for sewer.
it will have that means it has a smart cover installed in that. We can move those lids around as need be with the equipment. But this item is to acquire 10 additional smart covers as well as the Smart Care Maintenance Program. And this we already have, I think it says within your fact sheet, 45 of these smart covers plus 6 smart rain sensors. So this further expands that program. It's a critical piece of our emergency management and preventative efforts when it comes to sanitary sewer overflows. So this is recommending the purchase of those 10 additional covers and the smart cover maintenance program, which will apply to all of our smart covers that we have in the inventory. Any questions with that one?
I'd like to know how it works, but you can tell me that later. I don't need it tonight.
Okay. It's pretty straightforward. It's a pretty simple process. Item 10C, this is the master master progressive design build agreement with Wharton Smith Inc. for our wastewater treatment plant at Plant 3, the expansion of that, and ultimately for the abandonment or decommissioning of Plant 2 and restructuring that to become more of a master lift station. We have representatives with us here today from Morton Smith. Mr. French is in the back. We also have representatives from Jones Edmonds. Anthony is with us as well. These are consultants that we have on this project. In March of last year, we did issue an RFQ, a request for qualifications for this design build process. We have been in negotiation for the past several months to nail this down. This is a significant project at the end of the day, close to a $200 million investment that will ultimately be made into our wastewater system. As you know, we have some long-range needs at Plant 3, not only for the existing facility, but to be able to expand capacity as we continue to grow. This is the master document that we're presenting to you today that will be the umbrella under which task orders assigned to various aspects of the project will come forward. So there's no cost associated with this particular item. This is just setting the framework under which we will execute task orders. Now remember, this is a design build, so as we bring forward a task order, it will include the design services with a GMP, a guaranteed maximum price for that element. And then we will come back for that particular element with an amendment to that GMP to cover the construction costs. And we will take bites at this project in meaningful ways of, how do we make improvements rather than do everything all at once? We'll do it a phase at a time. So that's how this master agreement has been structured. The city attorney's office worked very closely with the legal team from Morton Smith along with staff to bring this in for a landing. So this is a big step for us, and we are presently already reviewing task order 1, which we will present to you at an upcoming staff meeting or a commission meeting that actually implements some of the initial work for this. Next item is for travel and training. We have 2 travel and training items. The first is for the Coastal and Heartland National Estuary Partnership. This is for Commissioner Mercer, who serves as a liaison to that committee or that organization. They have 3 meetings that are slated in this calendar year: January 23rd, which is tomorrow, May 22nd, and September 18th. Those are all held in Port Charlotte. So this item is to retroactively on Monday approve her travel and attendance for the meeting that will occur for tomorrow, and to provide advance approval for her attendance at the May 22nd and September 18th meeting. And then the other is a travel and training request for all members of the City Commission, along with myself, Deputy City Manager Carnevale, and our Public Affairs and Communications Director Katrina Hill, to travel to Tallahassee between March 11th through the 13th to participate in Polk County Day and our time with members of the legislative delegation. And we have made accommodations for that trip, and we have some flexibility if we need to cancel any of those, if there are conflicts or obligations that would keep any of our commission or others from not being able to attend. And I believe that is everything on the consent agenda, sir.
Okay, where are we staying?
We are back at the Doubletree this year.
Okay,
Same place we were prior years,
Yeah.
and the travel is on Polk County Day is on a Wednesday. I think it's on Wednesday this year. And I know that Commissioner Dawson will also be attending that as a participant with Leadership Winter Haven. So that group will be there at the same time.
okay.
I think they're there the day after the 12th. Is that when they're scheduled?
I'm not sure what their exact schedule is, sir, but I think that you're definitely there on Polk County Day,
Right, yeah,
because that delegation will be with us.
gotcha.
So
All right, resolution R2504.
this is a resolution pertaining to the Harbor at Lake Henry subdivision. So they're requesting the commission accept certain improvements and dedications in favor of the city, as noted in the plat for that subdivision. This is a 36.03 plus or minus acre subdivision. at the easternmost intersection of Old Lucerne Park Road and Lucerne Park Road. It's highlighted on your screen. This contains 179 building lots and 14 common lots. All of the utilities and roadways within here, with the exception of stormwater, will be assigned to the city. The HOA will retain responsibilities for the stormwater drainage system. They did issue a performance bond that was accepted by the city commission. That totaled $313,258 for some of the incomplete improvements. Our inspections more recently have found that those incomplete improvements are now complete, and the water, wastewater, and reuse utilities, along with internal roadways, can now be accepted by the city. So this is the acceptance of that plating.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
quick question. I know there's 3 projects out there, and it was the first one or the first 2. This was one of the ones, Eric, that got in first, or is this,
On roadway
refresh my
concurrency.
memory on that?
Yeah, we've been in constant communication throughout the development process for all of these projects. This one, we have already approved the plat, so this one got in. The only one left hanging out there along this stretch of road would be Willowbrook North, and that they're going through their platting process right now, and it appears that they will be able to meet concurrency.
Oh, really? All 3 of them will make concurrency?
Yes, sir.
And there was another one, Eric, if I'm not mistaken, that was closer down across from like the villas at Lake Smart at the western intersection of Old Lucerne Park and Lucerne Park Road that was part of that conversation that I don't think moved
They
forward.
haven't moved forward.
So there was one that did not progress, which I think freed up some capacity, Commissioner Danson.
I know we went to DC to try to get some federal money back when Mr. Herr was here, and you guys have been up there a couple of times since. Have we made any progress on this road? I mean, do we have anything that you can tell us? Because this is still a nightmare, and we're going to make it worse with these. I know it's concurrent. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, is there any relief somewhere coming down the road that we know of?
So in working with the FDOT, they got the PD&E adopted for the entire corridor. And so what that does is that kind of locks in that PD&E. And once that's done,
What does that
then
stand
the
for?
planning, design, and environmental review.
Okay.
So that basically is the study of the whole corridor. Once that's locked in and approved, then the DOT can start putting funding behind that. And so they
27
got,
all the way to MLK Boulevard?
yes, sir. Yep.
I think it goes
I think
across
it's past
27.
Yeah, across
It's
27.
old
So
17.
they're going to study the whole thing at once.
So they did that. They studied the whole thing, and that plan's been adopted. So then they can start putting funding behind it. So they funded the section from MLK Boulevard just north of Avenue Y. So that's that first segment, which was one of the things that we had pushed them for. And then so that sets the stage for these other segments to be funded. And I believe there's an intersection improvement that they're working on, possibly standalone from the rest of that at this intersection here to make that
Signalization that
Yep.
popped up in their capital improvement plan.
Where's
I think
that
it's within the next fiscal year. I believe it's funded.
Where you guys, can you roughly tell me where that's going to be?
That would be at the intersection of Old Lucerne Park Road, the one on the screen here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
right where that gas station is.
I think they, and help me out, I think they moved the section from Avenue Y to MLK back a year.
But didn't we agree as a commission to put some of our own money in here to spur this along and to get it going?
Well, that section that had been approved for funding, but they moved it. I think, who was there I think that's what they did. They moved it back a year.
But you don't remember the fact that I think it was when Michael Herr was here, but we voted to
Yeah.
put up some of our own money.
But, and we actually went to the Rock Church
Yeah.
and talked with them, and then we had some subsequent meetings with them. But their whole thing was is that they could only see clearly from like Avenue Y to First Street.
Well, Brian was part of that when we were getting our own money to get that section done right away without waiting. We wanted.
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
what I recall was we threw it out there like we would be willing to do that. I don't think we necessarily
No, they-
committed it, but
I think the point when they came and did the presentation, it seemed like they weren't going back far enough from MLK. And so I had suggested, well, wait, why don't you wrap this up further and try to, because there's vacant land all the way up, I think, to the gas station that's there between MLK and the gas station. Because what they were potentially proposing was that wasn't going to be impactful enough for the amount of traffic that this road sees, in my opinion. But after that meeting, we never heard anything else from them. But now
We never
that
voted on that then.
No,
Okay.
but-
All right.
There's still the design and the funding.
So I happen to have a copy of the 5-year work program here that I had in my binder. Lucerne Park Road widening from MLK to Avenue Y. The right-of-way acquisition is in fiscal year 25 and 26. Construction is in 2027. Those funds become available in July of 2027.
Okay.
And the signalization at this intersection that we're just talking about, construction funds became available July 1 of 2024, and they anticipated construction to start as early as fall of 25. So
Sure.
this year.
So you're gonna put the light in first.
And the road that's there along where Willowbrook is for that development, I know when I was on MLK the last time, it seemed like, hey, there's a new road there. It just popped up. But is that not going to connect all the way over yet?
So you're talking about the road that goes through the Willowbrook subdivision. So there's right of way in there, and there's access into that subdivision, which is Eric was just talking about with the platting. One of the things that I'm going to mention during my comments, I'll go ahead and share with you now, is we are putting together we're presenting to you a draft legislative platform for this year. One of the things that we're recommending be included in both our state and our federal platform is seeking funding for the construction of the Willowbrook bypass road, for lack of a better word. We have the right of way through there because it's dedicated with that subdivision. We don't have the funds to build that road, so we are cost estimating that out as to what that would be. To us, that sounds like a great project for the state to get behind because it provides relief in a much faster means on a very stressed state roadway. So that's the right of ways there, but we've got to get across a canal. There's some other challenges within that. It's an internal road, but we've got to do.
But there's a road there now. The entrance to that road is started.
Yeah, I've not been up there to see it
Yeah.
with my own eyes, but certainly it would
So I
make
was just-
sense.
I was wondering, if they'll take it on all the way up to I'm assuming they would take it all the way up to the canal, and then on the other side of the canal, they would run it on up to Lucerne Park Road.
I think that's the road into the subdivision. Our road is outside of the subdivision in a dedicated right of way that is separate from it.
Correct.
That's
It
what
won't,
that was.
it doesn't go all the way up to the
Yeah.
canal.
I didn't know what I was looking at when I.
Yeah,
I
that's
just
just
a
the
road
subdivision
popped up
itself.
there.
And Mayor Potemi, there was a time when that road, early on in the discussions of that subdivision, would go down through there and be a connecting road all the way, like a boulevard that bifurcated, say, the subdivision. That was probably in the very early years of that discussion. And then there were some changes in what was going to be developed there, because remember, it was modular homes at one point, and then it evolved over time and changed hands. And now that roadway, as I understand it, Eric, is actually outside of the subdivision, but runs alongside it.
Correct. Yes, sir.
So that is one of our legislative asks, is trying to, see if we can get some legislative support both at the state and federal level to make that happen. That would be a tremendous relief on that road.
And we've got the data that would support that from.
We will have the data,
the-
yes, sir.
The geo stuff.
Is there any way we could throw Sage Road in this conversation, since that's all out in the same area? As far as, I don't know if the state would be willing to help with that, but if you could, just don't forget about that road, because
Right.
that makes a world of difference connecting Dundee Road to 544. If we could get Sage Road done, then all that stuff works 10 times better. to be able
Yes, sir.
to
Yeah.
be, to roll people without having to get on 27 or go through town. If they want to go out to Legoland or something, they don't have to drive on 27 or go through the middle of MLK Boulevard to get there. So,
Yes, sir.
and if we're waiting for the developer to do it, we might be 10 years before that road gets built. And we got the right of way now. So
Yeah, I'd say that those are two, when we look at road projects that provide some relief, certainly Thompson Nursery Road realignment and
Oh, that's a
and
biggie.
expansion is the granddaddy of them all for down in southeast Winter Haven. This Willowbrook corridor would provide a tremendous relief, particularly at the intersection of MLK and Lucerne Park Road, where we see so much traffic backing up well past Ware Avenue on many occasions. And then Sage Road, as you said, creating a kind of a relief valve for people in the Country Club Road area trying to get in towards town
if you
versus.
just think about people on 27 that want to go towards Southeast Winter Haven, they have to drive either down 27 or go through the middle of the city, go through Florence Villa, and they could peel off halfway down and go out through Sage Road. That'll relieve a lot of pressure in Florence Villa, I would think. I mean, I'm no traffic engineer, but common sense tells me it would. So,
Okay,
So I think we are at first readings.
yes, we've done the first one.
So the first, on 12A, this is the adoption of the CIP, Capital Improvement Plan, into our comprehensive plan.
Mhm.
And this is required by Florida statutes that we do adopt the 5-year schedule of CIP into the comp plan. And this will cover years 2024-25 through 2028-29. And it is built off of the information that is contained within our current year fiscal operating budget. It also contemplates the Polk County 5-year transportation work program, the FDOT 5-year work program, and the 5-year work program that's adopted by the school board. So all that folds into it. It does limit the inclusion to projects that have a minimum cost of $25,000 or a minimum service life and a minimum service life of 5 years. So this went to this planning commission earlier this month and was unanimously voted to move forward for your consideration. So this is adopting the 5-year CIP into the comp plan.
Okay, any questions? Okay. 2506.
This is pertaining to our wastewater industrial pretreatment ordinance, which exists within Chapter 19 of the city's code. So DEP provides oversight to this and performs annual audits. And so we are proposing for some revisions to that ordinance. These stem from the March 27th, 2024 audit of the pretreatment fat, oil, and grease division. The ordinance addresses DEP's recommendations for regulatory compliance, clarifies language, and corrects some minor typographical errors. DEP has provided us, as of January 3rd this year, their preliminary approval of the ordinance, and so it is now coming forward for the commission to officially adopt or consider on first reading. In your packet, there is a strike-through version that was provided, and I believe it should be highlighted within your packet that shows where those changes were made. These, from my review, and I'll certainly defer to Mr. Nicholson and Gary Hubbard, these appear to be very minor changes. Most of them are typographical and clarification, maybe where we had some changes in titles and the like.
All right. The next item is the budget ordinance, 02507.
Thank you, sir. In July of 2023, we began we adjusted our purchasing process and our accounting process to incorporate the encumbrance of purchase orders as a means to better manage our resources, create greater transparency, and overall fiscal accountability. So encumbrance rolls forward. Those roll forwards occur when commitments are carried forward from one fiscal year to the next. And due to the encumbrance roll forwards from the previous fiscal year, so we're talking fiscal year 2023, adjustments are needed to the fiscal year 2024 budget. That's the budget that we just completed this past September. So there is within your packet an Exhibit A that shows these are relatively minor dollar amounts. You can see that within the general fund, there is $250,482 that need to be accounted for in the 24 budget is rollovers from the prior year, and about $238,440 within the airport fund that were encumbrances that need to roll forward. And that is just to clean up the 24 budget. That's what we're going through audit processes now, and that will also affect the current fiscal year 25 budget. So CJ, anything to add to that?
So at the February meeting, we're going to do the budget roll forward, or the purchase order roll forwards from 2024 to 2025.
So you'll have another one of these that comes through for the subsequent year.
All right. Okay, new business, RFQ 2438.
In August of this past year, we issued an RFQ again for design build services. This was for the redevelopment of the former fire station number 1, which is just to our north here on the backside of the finance and customer service building. The intent is to construct a new City of Winter Haven building division administrative office. With all of the growth that we are experiencing and the amount of work that is coming out of there, we are pinched for space across the way in the building that we acquired, I think probably 15, 16 years ago. I will say we are also exploring opportunities to acquire property in the southeast Winter Haven area for a satellite office for our building division. As traffic becomes more and more in our community, as we see more and more development in the areas of the ILC and in southeast Winter Haven, just from a customer service and efficiency of operations, we're going to need to look at some additional opportunities there. But in this case, we're talking specifically about the old fire station. We did the RFQ. We received 4 proposals this past October. Those were vetted out by the city's selection team, and they unanimously recommended Whitehead Construction to proceed with the design build process. You can see an image. This is what was included in their proposal, but it just gives you some sense of what that could look like. That patio area, that's the actual driveway of what the old fire station bays where they would come in and out of the property. So this will be a tremendous improvement to that and a much more functional area for us to serve customers. We did set aside $7 million in the construction fund that came from the building division fund. Remember, we can only use building division fees on building division expenses. So there is funding set aside for that. I would expect that this project, because the shell of the building is in relatively solid condition, there may be some roofing repairs. This is mostly interior work, should not be a lengthy process to design out and get constructed and operational. So we're recommending the award of the RFQ to Whitehead, and then we'll negotiate the agreement with them and bring back a GMP for design services, followed by a subsequent GMP amendment for the actual construction.
So
Go ahead.
this is the old, this annex over here. You're
Yes, sir.
basically going to turn the whole building into the annex, all office space?
Right.
Okay. That's the plan. Okay.
And that's to really try and consolidate some services in there. I'm looking at, just so you're aware, some potential to relocate our finance team to over into Normeo, where we've got some space, and open up their space that we can perhaps, do more with our engineering division in that same space. So for a customer coming in that's dealing with, say, a commercial property, their building division, their engineering, their coordination between engineering and the account services for new commercial hookups, all that is very, it's concentrated in one space, and a greater coordination and collaboration between those units.
Well, I've got to tell you, T, I like this approach better than trying to locate land and build a $50 million new city hall to put everybody in one place. I know this is kind of piecemeal, but we're all in the same complex. So to me, this makes more sense than trying to come up with a $50, $60 million check to build a 5-story city hall. I like your approach is what I'm trying to say. I think this is a good idea, but that's just me. I don't know how we come up with that much money to build a new city hall.
The customer service, would they be in that too?
We'll have customer service in there. Now, keep in mind, we will be building a utility campus out at the Bradco Farms. Our customer service operations, more and more of that is going to, I'll say, back of house operations. It's less in-person type stuff. I will expect that we will maintain a presence here of some level, even when we open a new campus, simply from a commercial standpoint of collaboration and coordination, and we just have to work that out. But we still, in the annex right across the way, you have customer service for utilities, you have finance. There's an IT component that's still there, and then this new space, which is the old firehouse.
I know that you don't have as much cash coming in as you used to, or, and customer service, or what used to be the intake of the cashiers and things like that. I know you don't have that.
It's a
much
lot more
coming
green
online and
processes.
everything.
Yeah.
But there would still be some for that.
I think
because you're
we'll
taking
always-
all the cash there.
Yeah, I think we'll always have some need to accommodate cash payments, people that are just not comfortable making payments other ways. And I think over time that the dependency on those types of services diminishes, but I think we'll always have some of that. We have a report that comes out monthly that shows us how many people are taking advantage of our green initiatives, whether it's auto pay or paying, through credit cards online, whatever their process is. And that number continues to increase, but we still have a number that, people that I'm going to pay my water bill when I get paid, and I'm going to bring it here because that's what I'm most comfortable with. So I think we always have to be able to accommodate that.
Well, and also issues of some sort of water problem issue, then they want to talk to somebody.
And we have that as well. Yes.
The other thing, the drop off or drop box or whatever you want to call it, is that used a lot? Still used, drive by, drop it in?
Yep.
Do that?
When we're going through the design of a space like this, I just want to be sure that we make this space able to evolve over the time of the city. So if that means spending a little extra money on walls that move and pivot, and you can change those spaces around as departments grow and shrink and whatnot, I'm all for that. I'm just not a huge fan of, putting up that immovable wall and then you've outgrown that space, within a couple of years. So hopefully that can be considered in the design
Yeah, I think,
process.
Mayor Pro Tem, the beauty of this, if you ever want anybody involved in building their own building or designing their own building, the building division probably are the best people. So I'm curious to see what they come up with. It is, a lot of block construction that's already in there, so it's filling in those spaces. You're spot on. We should be designing buildings for no less than a 20-year use horizon. Sometimes we hit that 20 years in 5 or 10, it seems. This will have, I think, sufficient flexible space to do exactly what you're speaking of. And like I said, at the same time, Eric Labby and CJ Scott and I will be meeting, I think it's later this week, to look at what are some opportunities we have in Southeast Winter Haven for, rather than just looking at how do we expand services in here. That's one option, but if it doesn't effectively meet the needs of those we serve, our citizens, what option do we have for that satellite type service to be better situated to respond to inspections quickly, be closer to the residents, all those things to save each side time and energy and money. So I agree with your thoughts completely. And I appreciate your comment, Mr. Dancer, about
Anyone
this
else?
approach.
All right, then the final item is the recommendation for the grant and aid committee member, Dr. Barbara Jones. So that's straightforward.
And it's also, if I could, Mayor, this is so appointing Dr. Jones to fill the seat that was last held by Dr. Negley, but it is also to reappoint Tina Summerlin, Abdul Al-Khatib, Alex Santiago, and Melinda Calagridis for new 3-year terms effective this January. So we met with them in, I believe it was October of this year, and they agreed to continue on in service, but we did need to fill Dr. Jones that other seat.
All right. Anything else?
I have one item that I can share under just a city manager item when we get to that.
Yes, I'm to that right now.
Okay. So I mentioned legislative items, and I wanted to share with you what we have been assembling based upon feedback that we've certainly picked up from the commission over the past years, or at least since the last session ended. Also taking lead from some of our department staff and the professional associations that they work with, the committees you sit on with the Florida League, of what are some of the issues that we see coming forward within this year's legislation. Committee meetings have been delayed, as you know, because of a special session that's being called. So we're just trying to get all of our ducks in a row for when we do have an opportunity to communicate with our delegation. Items that we would like to propose to you as key components or priorities within our state level legislative platform this year include the Willowbrook Road, which we just discussed, of seeking some legislative appropriated funding to help bring that to reality. The second item is electric vehicle infrastructure. So this has been an item that we've carried forward in the past. We have an EV master plan. There is federal money that is being released to the states to support the further development of the EV infrastructure for charging stations. And this aligns with recent actions that we took related to the I-4 frame corridor adoption. We have put some of those EV charging stations in, certainly not the level 3, I believe that we would classify them as the high-speed chargers, but where can we do some more of that? So pursuing the deployment of those funds and specifically in our area. The third item is promoting support or advocating for support of cultural arts funding at the state level. As you know, we have a tremendous cultural arts program here in Winter Haven. Last year, the Theater Winter Haven was in line to receive a significant amount of money for their programming and their enhancements to the Ritz Theater. That funding was ultimately cut at the state level, and we would like to advocate for restoring and continuing funding for cultural arts that can go out to some of our nonprofit partners here. That's a benefit to us, not only in the cultural arts side, but economically that supports a lot within the Winter Haven area, particularly in our downtown, if it can go towards the Ritz Theater.
He's just an FYI, Dan told me he's #1 on the list this year. Not
All the
number
more
2.
reason why we should be pushing for.
So if they don't cut the funding, he said we're going to definitely be in line this year.
That's excellent. Is that for the Ritz Theater or for programming in general?
I forgot already.
Okay.
Do you know Julie? No, I don't either. He told me it's a pretty good chunk of money though.
We'll make sure we have all the details of that so we can tell that story. Fourth item is continued support for One Water policies. Gary Hubbard was just recently in Tallahassee with the One Water Commission. Again, one of those state associations of which we support and belong to, advocating for continued efforts to establish One Water is a accepted approach in appropriating funds to support grant efforts and other funding mechanisms that are tied to One Water programs. The continued support for local project funding avenues such as FERDAP, Sun Trails, Land and Water Conservation Fund, those programs that we apply for that give us grant money to advance capital projects here. Sun Trails is a big one, and I think Andy is here. Sun Trails is, the old Dixie Trail is a candidate for Sun Trail money that would further connect us into that coast to coast across Florida trail system. I don't think we will have a FERDAP program or a project this year, but we have benefited from that year over year over year. And so we want to continue to advocate that those programs stay in place. They don't just help us, but they help certainly our other municipalities here in Polk County and beyond. Local business tax receipts. advocating for that in advance of another assault on local business tax receipts. That is not necessarily a huge chunk of money that the city takes in annually, but it is a mechanism that allows us to ensure compliance with our zoning code, with life safety measures that are handled through our fire marshal and the inspections that we do to ensure that our citizens are protected when businesses go in, that we are safeguarding our neighborhoods to make sure things like auto mechanic shops don't end up in your neighborhood or other types of services that shouldn't be there. So we think that that is something that very well could come back again this year, and being prepared to say, if you're not going to continue to allow us to have business tax receipts at the local level, you have to give us some other means to ensure the safety of our citizens that are triggered by that. Utility fund transfers and surcharge fees. Certainly expect that to be an issue again this year. We are preparing all the necessary information to explain how our 12% policy works, what the value of that is, as well as how the surcharge, any changes on that would impact our residents locally. I'm not sure who serves on that committee at the league of the five of you, but I certainly feel that that's going to be one that comes back to the surface. Anonymous code compliance complaints. This is one that has come up time and time again. I just recently had a citizen in my office who was sharing with me when she wanted to discuss our follow through on all of the code compliance cases that she had submitted, and we provided her a list of it. Her first response was, "I did not submit all of these." And it became apparent that somebody was submitting code complaints utilizing her name without her knowledge. And that is not the first time that that's happened. That's been well documented elsewhere in the state. So we want to continue to advocate for some further action on the code enforcement legislation that provides some further safeguards for our staff or for our citizens in terms of being able to file code complaints without fear of retribution from the person upon which they filed that, and some form of verification requirement. If you are going to require us to take a name, how do we verify that it is that person? How do I verify that if Mr. Carnevale files a complaint and uses Mr. Dantzler's name, that he's not or is Mr. Dantzler? We don't have a means to do that today. And the last item, this is a little bit of a reach for us, but I think it's an important one that MJ and I have been discussing since Hurricane Milton, and that is we have a number of communication lines in our community. And I'd say this is in every community in the state of Florida. And when you have hurricanes that come through, a lot of times power lines come down, communication lines also come down or hang low. And what we find is that oftentimes those communication lines, because they are hanging low enough that we can't get an emergency vehicle or a response crew down a road following a hurricane, we can't access that road. We don't know what that line is. On numerous occasions, we find that those lines are abandoned or no longer in use, and they are just there because nobody ever took them down. So one of the things that we had pitched to one of our congressional or one of our local delegation members was to look towards some type of audit requirement for the communication companies in Florida to inventory their assets that are affixed to utility poles and remove those that are no longer in use or that have been abandoned, because we don't know that. And the less junk that we can get out of the aerial pathways of our roads, the less likely we are to have obstructions when we're trying to get a fire truck or a garbage truck or something down there. I'll share with you on Saturday as we walk the parade, just walking along, and our packet will show this. There's a couple pictures of me standing next to lines that are adjacent to sidewalks that I can reach up and touch. Communication lines. This morning I watched a mobile home delivery vehicle have to stop traffic and go into an alternate lane because they could not pass under a communication line, and thus blocked a major roadway within the area while that was occurring. So we think that just the same as we have to go out and inventory lead and copper pipe for the benefit of our citizens, communication companies should have to do some level of inventory of their communication lines. And if they're abandoned or not needed or no longer in service, remove them. So,
Never thought of that.
So those are items that we have assigned in draft to a platform, but I wanted to present those to you, get your take on it. We will still carry forward items that we get from the school board. I do expect a platform to come out from them in the next probably week or two. And as Commissioner Yates had pointed out, the issue of school start times, I think that that's going to be a hot and heavy one for them, that we also benefit from improved legislation in that regard. And then also Polk State College. We always look to see what their platform includes. And I would think that, I can't say this with confidence, but I would expect that they are going to ask for additional state funding for the Haines City Davenport campus. With that being a medically focused campus and the magnitude of medical professionals that we will need in Polk County, even here in Winter Haven with Advent Health Hospital coming on, I believe it would be wise for us to advocate on their behalf for continued funding for that. That will reap rewards and produce workforce that we are going to need in our community for many years ahead.
I had the opportunity to be with Congressman Soto yesterday, and while he doesn't represent our district any longer, he still remains a friend of our area for sure. And he is going to be assigned to the House Committee on Natural Resources. So I made sure to remind him of the One Water projects that he can use as an examples while he's on that committee. So just something to keep in mind going forward as well.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I will tell you that we have begun looking at our DC junket for April of this year. So, Mr. Mayor, I will look to you in the coming weeks to identify a travel party for that, who from the commission you would like to accompany you on that trip as we have in the past. The big items that we are going to be looking at the federal level, certainly first and foremost, getting to know new agency personnel with the new administration, lots of changes in the people that we've been dealing with for the past 4 years. So building new relationships. We did have an advocacy call today, and I can tell you our contacts in DC are extremely well connected with those that are coming into power. And I think that will benefit us. Items that we discussed. First, the highest priority for us at the federal level from a staff perspective right now deals with our airport and trying to get the dedicated frequency for Gilbert Field as a safety measure. And we've had some strategy talks on that. That is something that we think we can make some headway on this year. That is a big issue that's coming out of your Airport Safety Committee and the Airport Advisory Committee. And so we're looking forward to engaging in that as in addition to continued conversation on the remote air traffic control tower, which is progressing, but we still need FAA, sorry, not the Future Farmers of America, Federal Aviation Authority, to be in support of that, to help us, quote unquote, bring that in for a landing. One Water and continued support for these massive infrastructure projects remains a top priority for us. And then also, again, that issue of Willowbrook Road. We think that has support. It merits support at the federal level, just the same as we were able to get a congressional community appropriation for Lake Silver Drive or Lake Ship Drive. This one, I think, has even more of an impact in that regard. So we're looking at late April. I think it's the last day of April until the first 2 days of May is when we've got that DC trip laid out, and that aligns with when both the House and the Senate are both in session. So I wanted to share this with you so that if there's other items that you want us to put on to the agenda, onto the platform at the state level, that we can do that. These were, again, based upon conversations we've received from you on the dais of your legislative committee meetings and what we're hearing from our state agencies. These were key things. As issues come up from committees, we will be prepared to address those and provide feedback to our delegation, to the league, to others on what the impacts of those types of things are. If there are changes to the Live Local Act, if there are changes in exemptions, homestead exemption proposals, those types of things, we will certainly play a whole lot of defense on those items as they come forward. These were just the handful of items that we felt we are in a good position to go in with an offensive approach.
Okay,
Two things.
yes.
Number one, where is Dixie Trail?
Dixie Trail goes from the Lake Alfred, well, actually, it goes from Haines City to Auburndale, and it will cross the northernmost leg of the, I guess it's still the Chain Lakes Trail. Andy, you want to come to the podium and point it out for them? It really goes off of where our trail ends in Lake Alfred all the way west out to the Auburndale Tico.
It goes all the way from where our trail ends to Haines City?
The stretch that the whole PD&E that was approved would go from Haines City, bisect Lake Alfred, the Lake Alfred Chain of Lakes Trail, and then go via old Lake Alfred Road into downtown Auburndale onto PK, and then turn and go past the beach, and then go to Berkeley Road where the Auburndale Trail meets.
That's a trail that's already there?
No, that would
No, it
be-
does not exist today.
That's the alignment of what the old Dixie Trail would be.
Oh, they're just calling it the old Dixie Trail or
Yeah.
something.
Right. It's right. It's not the
Okay, but
same.
it's not a trail that abandoned or something. Okay.
Right.
Okay. And the last thing I'll mention to other commissioners and to all of us going to Tallahassee, we have a new representative now. We want to make sure we use whatever powers of persuasion we can to emphasize home rule to this guy. I don't know him that well. I've only met him a couple of times, but as we get opportunities with our new representative to make sure that we voice our opinions on home rule and that we expect him to be a home rule hero with the rest of us. So just for what it's worth, I just think we need to start him early.
Yeah, so had an opportunity to have lunch and tour John around the city of Winter Haven,
Okay.
along with T. Michael. We visited a lot of the spots. I met him through other events, and so
Okay.
wanted to reach out to him before he was actually sworn in. So he's very familiar with all of the Winter Haven projects that are going on, and needless to say, he was very impressed with everything that was going on in Winter Haven as well. So I think he will be a home rule hero for us, and have Winter Haven's best interests at heart as well.
And his office is here. He has an office here in Winter Haven, in Representative Killebrew's old space down by the on Avenue C, across the street from Soci Market and Right Step Dance Studio. We also had a meeting just within the past 2 weeks. Katrina Hill, MJ, and myself had an opportunity to engage with Jennifer Kincart Johnson,
Okay.
Representative
Oh, that's
Kincart.
right. She's in there when y'all.
Yeah, I think you stopped in with that day. And so, again, that was our big push was, be ever mindful of things that are statewide issues and things that are local issues and not mixing the two up. And she understood, I think, she respected our position on that.
We just
Yeah.
have to always remind them because they
Yes,
get up
sir.
in that Tallahassee, they lose their mind sometimes. With all due respect.
Don't say that too loud. They may be
I said all due
listening.
respect. Yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor, and I guess it's kind of like a consensus nod of sorts that we have a draft version of the platform that we were working on today through Katrina Hill. So, what I'd like to do is give you all an opportunity. If there's other things that you think we need to add to this beyond these offense items, we can certainly plug those in, but we'd like to go to production on something that is a collateral leave behind at our earliest opportunity.
Okay, all right. You have copies?
I can put copies in your box in the morning. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Anything else?
Move to adjourn.
I have one.
Ms.
I have
Dan-
one item.
Oh,
I actually had one item that you can
Wow.
Gotta be quick,
the
Vanessa.
agenda. So I'm happy to report that we have a new employee from the city
yes,
clerk's
yes,
office in the
yes,
audience
yes.
tonight. So you can raise your hand, Mercedes. That's Mercedes Hammond. She is our new customer service representative staff assistant. We're very happy to have her. So Mercedes, a little bit about Mercedes. She's worn many hats in her career, but has 5 years of government experience in the city clerk's office. She worked for the city of Haines City, but she also would assist other departments when needed. So she does come with a wealth of information there. Mercedes is a resident of Auburndale for the past 33 years, but she was born and raised in Hawaii, and she is of Filipino and Hawaiian descent. And so a fun fact about Mercedes is that she is the proud mom of Xavier Hammond, who is one of our city firefighters. for the past 2 years. And she also has a son-in-law, Daniel Braswell, who is currently in the city's police academy. So she fully supports the city of Winter Haven. We're just ecstatic to have her and appreciate just everyone that made this position possible. So thank
Be in
you.
your office?
Yes, she is in our office. She's at the empty desk. So yes, feel free to stop by and even, wish her well. Thank you.
All right, welcome, Mercedes.
Yeah.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn again?
So moved.
We stand adjourned.